is that Turkey, Uzbekistan, and Qatar emerged as the biggest known buyers. Does that surprise you? Do these three surprise you, Randy?
No, I mean, again, I think that those three countries are countries that are really trying to establish their own strength within their own reserve currencies, and so I think it's just a reflection. And I know there's a lot of other buying going on that isn't necessarily getting reported. There are a few countries out there that don't report. I know Russia has sort of changed their stance, and they now consider it a state secret, and they won't report what they hold for gold. And I'm sure we're seeing that a bit on a bit broader basis.
Well, this is the big story, right? Who are the mystery buyers? We know that China and Russia have been buying and hoarding gold. But before we talk about this, can you give us some insights about how the World Gold Council collects this information? I mean, is there a regulatory body that can enforce gold disclosure holdings?
No, there isn't. I mean, that's one of the advantages of gold is the fact that it is a bit there isn't a regulatory body. It's a universal commodity that's widely accepted as that measure of value, as that store of value, and there is no the IMF, of course, tends to be the main regulating authority in terms of asking for this information, but there's no forced requirement for members of the International Monetary Fund to actually deliver back that information in. It's a request, but it's not a requirement. And so most of the information that we pull at the World Gold Council does come from IMF filings. We of course have a division at the World Gold Council that does focus on providing education to central bankers, the actual people that work at these central banks, to try and educate them about the strengths and the benefits of having gold in those portfolios. So we do have good, strong relations with most of the central banks around the world from that perspective. But when it comes to the filings, it's generally we pull most of our information out of the IMF. Well, I can tell you that the World Gold Council has an initiative right now pushing down that path to digitalize gold. It's called the Gold 247, or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is what it stands for. Gold 247 initiative. And really what we're striving towards is to try and make gold readily accessible through digital tokens, through, essentially, as I would say, I don't think there's actually been a real stablecoin invented out there yet, but I think that we may be able to create the first ever real stablecoin with real assets backing it. And so the ultimate goal is to improve the accessibility, the transparency, the provenance, and the trust behind gold and moving gold around. And so we've got a pretty heavy initiative focused on trying to work with a broader group of the refiners, the banks, the traders, to come up with a system that is gold backed and allows us to move gold around quickly, freely, with confidence, with trust, and with transparency, and actually ultimately provide gold as an alternative to the US dollar. If you look around the world right now, the US dollar is by far the strongest currency. We're all looking at commodity prices and all sorts of and ruining it. But if you start looking at perhaps the price of gold in, say, pounds or euros or other currencies around the world, it's actually doing okay. We've got an incredibly strong US dollar environment out there, and there's no real alternatives. And so I'm sure there's all sorts of groups. China, definitely would love to come up with an alternative to the US dollar as being the strongest of the fiat currencies. We think it's time for gold to actually step up and become an alternative that's not a fiat. It's actually got real value behind it. And so there's a real strong initiative being put forth by the World Gold Council right now. And we're hoping that within the next year, we will have a platform that will come out and allow digital gold to be traded freely and easily and rapidly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, ultimately to be used as a currency.
I mean, that would be revolutionary for the gold industry, Randy, and much needed modernization, I guess.
Okay, all right. Mr. Bala,